And how's it going, Melissa?
It's going good. It's going good today.
That's good. If you're just joining us here, my name is Aaron, and I am the host of the God is Awesome podcast. We're really happy that you're listening in. This is a podcast where we interview regular, everyday Christians about an extraordinary God and how what he does in our lives. And so today we've got Melissa Watkins with us on air. But before we get to her story, just want to let you know we are live on Facebook, and if you want to subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher and all the other places that you're in, just to share not just her story, but other stories, all of our stories put together. We want to thank everyone just hopping on air right now. Bill, Brian, Pam, Lindsay, we just want to say hi to you guys. Anyway, well, Melissa, it's been a long time coming. You've been a long time fan of this show.
Yes.
And
yes.
We're finally glad to have you on here as a guest yourself. I guess I'm just going to kick it right over to you. Maybe give us a little bit about origin story, where you're coming from, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I am basically a native of South Florida. We always lived down in Pompano, Deerfield Beach. Went to all the local schools down there, and I was raised in I want to say a Jewish Christian home, so to speak.
A Jewish Christian
My
home.
My dad was a Catholic, and he converted years and years ago with my mom. She was Jewish.
Okay.
And so we were raised in a very open home. One side of the house had a menorah, and the other side of the house had a Christmas tree.
Okay.
So I had the best of both worlds.
Was that confusing, or was that?
No, it was fun.
Okay.
Got a lot of gifts.
You got a lot of gifts. Okay.
Got a lot of gifts,
Gotcha.
a lot of presents. But being down there my whole life and living down there, a lot of my friends were Catholic.
Okay.
So, and coming from a Jewish background, traditional Jewish, women were not, they were the homebodies. Okay. So we never went to, we observed all the holy days and everything, but we never really went to temple or did anything that, was out of the ordinary.
Okay. So was it like very reserved upbringing?
It was reserved to the point where I only attended temple on holy days.
Okay.
And observed, we had seders in our house, and we observed the holidays, but we didn't actually go to temple.
Gotcha.
We didn't go to temple on Friday night. We didn't observe them on Saturday morning. We didn't do any of that.
Gotcha. Very cultural then.
Very.
Okay.
Very. Again, I was raised down there, went to all the local schools. Mm-hmm. My dad was a police officer, so I never got in any trouble. Yeah. Couldn't get in any trouble.
Sure.
And I had both parents. I was one of the I won't say lucky, but blessed, mm-hmm. because now I say blessed, then I was lucky. I had both parents. A lot of my friends had single parents even back then, so that was a little bit of a challenge, know. If I wanted to go to Teen Town or anything and spent the night at their house, I always had to go to church with them on Sunday morning.
Sure.
And it was Catholic church.
Gotcha.
So that part of me growing up was normal. It was just a normal lifestyle. Until at some point after I had met Noble and we got married, we started going to church. Mm-hmm. And
how old were you?
20, 21.
Gotcha.
Really going to church.
Okay.
No relationship.
Okay.
Just more of a religion kind of concept.
More cultural stuff.
Didn't know anything of anything. I just going and being there.
Why? Why did you go?
Noble wanted to go.
Okay. Gotcha.
Noble was a Christian and had been a Christian his whole life.
Okay.
So he said, I just think we should go to church. Okay, I'll go. All right. They had good coffee and everything else.
Oh, that's unusual, actually.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we went to church. It was an amazing church. It was New Covenant Church in Pompano. Mm-hmm. Wonderful relationships have been built that I still have relationships with people from there. But in that process, Noble, we had already had Stephanie, and this is now maybe 4.5, 5 years later.
Okay.
We then we had another child.
Gotcha. Wait, so before we go here, so did you become a Christian now?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Head knowledge.
Okay.
Not heart knowledge.
Gotcha. Okay.
Definitely not heart knowledge.
So you're about 25 right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been going to church for about 4 years,
mm-hmm.
loaded up with Christian
doing all the
stuff
right
here.
things that you're supposed to do.
Gotcha.
Got
Okay.
involved in the church, was involved in the food pantry, benevolence, mm-hmm. all those wonderful, wonderful ministries.
Then you had a girl.
We had Stephanie, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And then we it just was a turn, something turned, and when I found out I was pregnant again, it was strange, but yet somehow it was different. It was a different kind of pregnancy, emotionally. Mm-hmm. And then we had Stephen. He was a normal baby. Mm-hmm. There was no issues, no problems, normal pregnancy. And he had his first DPT shot.
What's a DPT
It's
shot?
A diphtheria, pertussis, something.
Okay.
Tetanus. I don't remember what it all stands for, but back then it was a big deal.
Okay.
And I'm sure they do something similar to that now, but
mm-hmm.
maybe not to that extent.
Okay.
And it was 2 weeks before Christmas. He was born in May, and this was 2 weeks before Christmas. And it was his shot. And then Christmas Eve, we had gone to church. And when we came home, we put the kids to bed. And later on, before we went to bed, we checked on them both. And Stephen was in convulsions. And we rushed him to the hospital. And if we hadn't found him, they would have, they said it would have been, they declared it a crib death. Back then they called it crib death. But because we found him, they wouldn't say it was a DPT shot. They wouldn't say that. And we weren't going to do an autopsy because he was only 6 months old. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, you know how in your heart of hearts you know what it is and what caused it. And after doing a lot of reading afterwards, I realized that's what it was.
Really?
But they just declared it almost sudden crib death.
Okay.
So at that point, I was angry with God. I was angry. This is Christmas Day. Stephen passed away Christmas Day.
Oh, wow.
And going through all those emotions and those feelings and dealing with Noble and with Stephanie, I had to hold back. I had to be the strong one.
What do you mean dealing with Noble and your daughter?
Well,
Stephanie?
because they were grieving and I was trying to comfort them. And I didn't have the opportunity, I guess. I didn't allow myself. I was going to be there for them. Mm-hmm. Not that they weren't there for me, but I made it like I was okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't okay.
Gotcha. So how did you comfort them? How were you there for them?
Just letting them talk, letting them share, letting them cry, letting them be angry, letting them do.
Did you feel like no one was there for you, or did you feel like a responsibility?
Yeah, I did. I felt like the mom.
Yeah.
The mom. I had to be strong. Gotcha. I had to keep everybody together. I had to do what was right.
Gotcha.
You know. At that point, because I was still involved in the church and doing things, my thought was, where are you, God?
Yeah. How could you let this happen?
Yeah. Don't you see? Because now remember, I still have a head knowledge and not a heart knowledge. Right. Don't you see all the things we're doing for you? Yeah. Don't you think,
we're serving in all these ministries. I'm a good person.
Noble's a deacon. I'm involved in the church. I have the keys for these things and that thing. And then I met this woman. Our church has had a healing ministry. I met this wonderful, wonderful woman. Her name was Joyce.
Healing ministry, can you?
Healing ministry, laying on of hands.
Okay.
And the gifts.
Okay.
And I went to her and I asked her, I was using her. She was going to be my comforter, because now I'm angry at God. These two are doing their own thing.
Sure.
Pick me, who's here for me. So I went and met with Joyce faithfully for weeks. And it was in that period of time where she would walk me through different scenarios of prayer and sharing and talking and seeing that Jesus was with Stephen. Stephen was there with Jesus.
Gotcha.
And it was just an amazing time. But that's, I believe, when my head went to my heart. That's when I truly believed I had a revelation of God and his love for me, his love for Stephen, his love for Stephanie, and for Noble.
Gotcha.
You know?
So what was it particularly of that? Was it what kind of prayer?
We would sit. I met with her twice a week. The first time we would just be talking and sharing, how was your week, and and catching up. But the second time we prayed, and she would put me in situations where she would say, where I'd close my eyes, and she'd say, "Can you picture Stephen, healthy Stephen?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "And now can you find something that makes you feel peaceful? Picture another scene that makes you feel peaceful."
Okay.
Which would be the beach for me. And she said, "Do you see Jesus there? Can you see Jesus there?" For a while I couldn't. I could see the beach.
Right.
I could see Stephen, but I couldn't see Jesus. But then as weeks went on, I could. And then she said, "Do you see Stephen with Jesus?" And I said, "No, he's still over here." And she said, "Okay." And so we prayed a little more. By the end of that one session, Jesus had Stephen sitting on his lap, and I was right next to the two of them. And from that point on, my whole thoughts and my whole situation changed. And I realized, at that point I realized, not that I hadn't heard these things before from others in that period of time. Children they're just on loan to us, and they're just here. We do the best we can. You raise them up the way God would want you to. All those things that I had heard in that period of time never really clicked, but now they did.
Gotcha.
And now I saw that Jesus had Stephen.
Wow.
And that was all there was to it. It was like the perfect picture for me.
So tell me how did that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people, a lot of parents out there that have something to grieve over, especially with their kids, right? So was that relationship set up by the church? How did you find this with Joyce, right? Joyce?
Well, our church actually had, it was called the Healing Ministry. And it was a couple that came into the church. They came from England, Barbara and Jim, and they brought over the Healing Ministry with them. And then they had counselors. You had to go through a process to be counselors, and it was a season that they did. And Joyce was one of their counselors.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And so
she led you through a series of prayers twice a week, and over time it helped you visualize your son Stephen on the lap of Jesus, and eventually and that was over a long period of time.
It was.
How long?
It was a good year and a half.
Year and a half. Yeah. See, I mean, you really can't speed up healing, right? I mean, there's no fast forward to healing.
There's no, not at all. And the challenging part still was that in that period of time, I still had to go through my own, did I do something wrong?
Sure.
My own guilt, maybe he wouldn't have the shots if I didn't do, all of that stuff you think about.
Right.
And I had to finally let go of that. I mean, it took a while, but I had to finally let go of all of that.
So how did you move from being angry with God to being at peace with God taking care of Stephen?
It was when I saw him with Jesus.
Gotcha. Okay.
When I saw the total acceptance.
Yeah.
And like I said, it went from my head to my heart.
So
and my relationship.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So now I'm a Christian, a real Christian, a heart Christian.
Right.
Not a
After 4 years of No, it was a traumatic death and then a year and a half of healing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did Noble and your daughter Stephanie?
They were fine. You know, we were that family that you would see in church on Sunday and everybody was good. Nobody, I mean, they knew about Stephen, but they didn't see that in our actions or anything, you know. So that part of it was good, you know.
So did that like launch you upwards with a relationship with God from there?
I don't think I bursted forth.
Okay.
I think I just got to where an acceptance.
Yeah.
An even acceptance where it wasn't high or low. It was just there.
Yeah.
And then it was like, so what do I do with this now?
Yeah.
Where do I go with this now?
You know, a lot of times Pastor Scott talks about how faith kind of grows sometimes, like slowly, like a big mustard seed or whatever.
Slowly,
so maybe, do you have like a reflection on the slow growth or process of what God was doing to you?
In that period of time?
Yeah, in that period of time.
Well, I think he was protecting me. I think he was keeping me in I don't want to say a cocoon, but he was keeping me around people that loved me and cared for me, friends, neighbors, all of that were encouraging, that knew what we were going through, but still was willing to be there if we needed anything.
He healed you as fast as you needed to be healed.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And for you, that was pretty slow.
It was because you go through a lot of emotions. You go through anger and hate, resentment, and this is just if you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you know, why God?
Yeah.
You know, all those questions that we're not supposed to ask, but you do.
Do you have something to say to someone who, maybe a young parent who might have lost a child, you know, early on like you did?
I don't know about. I think every situation is different, and every person and relationship is different as far as that goes.
Sure.
But as far as losing a child, again, you got to remember they're not ours.
Oh yeah.
They're ours to raise and to bring up in God's kingdom. But basically, they're His.
Yeah.
And He chooses who stays and who goes.
Yeah.
And for however long and what the season is.
Yeah.
The first time after this happened, after this period of time, our pastor then, George, there was another family that had lost a child.
Okay.
And she was suffering. Her name was Cindy, and she was suffering very, very much. I wasn't ready to go minister to somebody. I didn't think I was ready to go minister, you know, because I had all the answers.
Sure.
But George said, I really feel like you could be an asset for Cindy. And I did pray about it, but I just didn't know what my thoughts would be, how I would get to that point. And but I did call her, and I went over to see her.
Okay.
And I spoke with her, and I prayed with her. Became friends with her. She had already had 2 children, and she was at a place where she was getting ready to move. She was moving back to her family.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that it's going to be a long-term relationship, but I did have an opportunity to share with her.
Okay.
And I felt like, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
You know, because I was so hesitant at first.
Right. And you're still like coming off the tail end of your thing.
Yes.
So you were not even sure if this is like the right thing for you.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we fast forward and there was people here and there, but nothing where we ministered at that point much. Just still a lot of healing, a lot of growth, a lot of church involvement and people in our lives. And then it was Easter Sunday, and it was Easter Sunday. It was in, I'm trying to think when nobody was born, in November, so 1981.
Okay.
And I went forward to receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit. They had a call, and I felt like I was supposed to do that, and they had a baptism that day. So I got baptized. I had no idea, but the next week I found out I was pregnant with Noble, our son.
Okay.
So now I'm at a place where we weren't going to have any more children.
Sure.
I wasn't going to have any more children.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And God said, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So there we are now, and I'm pregnant with Nobi. And I really, I had a very rough pregnancy because of me and my insecurities.
Gotcha.
Still with Joyce, still
Yeah.
counseling with Joyce now, still
Yeah.
4 years later,
Yeah.
still counseling with her.
4 years later, still counseling now.
Yeah, but only once a week now,
Oh,
so I
gotcha.
had improved a
Yeah.
little bit.
Sure.
But she...
Man, healing slow. Healing slow.
And sometimes people can heal just like that.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and I don't even think it's a sign of immaturity or maturity.
No,
I think
no.
it's just the process and the
Yeah.
and where you're at spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's actually more common for it to be super slow and painful. So
yes.
Yeah.
And so now I'm dealing with Christmases.
yeah.
4 years of Christmases. Now I'm pregnant, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, now I have Stephen. I mean, I have Nobi, and then Nobi looks just like Stephen.
Oh man.
6 months of looking at Nobi, who I love dearly.
Yeah.
But
you still have that fear. Yeah.
so now he's 5 months old, and Noble and I look at each other, and we're still at the same doctor, same pediatrician and everything,
Sure,
because we're all
sure.
down south still. And he says, I need to see him for his shots. Not me.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing him in.
Yeah.
You talk to Noble. Noble goes, not me. Great. Neither one of us are willing to take this chance now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I don't think it has anything to do with not being a strong enough Christian, or
Sure.
we both just weren't ready.
Yeah.
We weren't ready. Nobi never had his shots. Never had them. He went to a Christian school, a BBK and a Christian school, where a friend of ours told us where you can get a paper you sign off, you know, and well, we did that.
Yeah.
We got him in. And I think he was 7 when he had to have a tetanus shot. And that was his first shot.
There you go.
And that was it. You know,
No problem.
Nothing. Nobi is 39.
Oh, okay.
He's a fireman.
There you
He's
go.
a dad with
Yeah.
3 wonderful I have 3 wonderful grandkids, and
Gotcha.
he has a beautiful wife, and healthy as can be. Big guy,
Yeah.
you know. But you go through that emotional stage, you know. We did have opportunities to pray with and talk with other people
Yeah.
that had lost, not so much in our church, but because of our situation, people knew, and we would go and minister. But a lot of times it's it's sort of at the beginning stages, and not everybody is ready to hear anything.
Sure.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hear any of that. So we stayed down there. We were there church-wise for years.
Yeah.
It was our home.
Yeah.
You know, everything is my friend Pam up here makes a joke when I say I'm going south. She goes, of course you are.
Yeah.
Because I always go south.
Yeah.
You know, our life's down there for 65 years.
Yeah.
So that was hard.
So what caused you to move up here?
We had originally Noble was going to retire, and we were going to sell our home. We had put it on the market, and we were going to travel. And what happened was the deal fell through with the one guy in the meantime. So we felt like that God didn't want us to do it. So we put everything back, went back involved, got it back in the church, did
Sure.
it 2 years, 3 years later, knock at the door, because we'd said, God, if you want to sell the house, you sell it. And knock at the door one night for dinner, and there was this couple that had come 3 years before. They were still engaged. They hadn't gotten married yet. And their family lived in our area, and they wanted to live there, but we'd already had a contract on the house. We opened the door, and they said, oh, you're still here? We said, yes. And they said, we want to buy your house. Really? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we sold the house within a month.
Yeah.
We sold the house. We were going to travel. but we ended up staying with some friends down south because we weren't sure what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. And our son called us one day and he said, I really would like you to be part of our kids' life. You're the grandparents, and they don't really have grandparents. Well, they do. My daughter-in-law's parents live up here. But he said, I didn't grow up with grandparents, which he didn't. Our daughter did, but he didn't. And he said, I want them to know the grandparents. I said, oh, well, we could put ourselves on hold for a few years.
Sure.
So we came up here and we rented. And we found a house and we were just renting. We figured 2-3 years and we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. We had a lot of friends up here because we were involved in another Christian community called Via de Cristo.
Okay.
And so we knew a lot of people up here. We knew a lot of churches up here and didn't want to just go to a church because we had friends there. You know, we felt like we need to go where God wants us to go.
Right.
So our first 6 weeks, 7 weeks, a couple of months up here, we went to different churches. It was nice visiting, seeing some friends we hadn't seen in a while. And,
sure.
But it never, you walk in and it just didn't feel right for us. Or the sermon didn't click or the music didn't click. It's just something. Nothing was wrong. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right fit.
Gotcha.
So I said, well, let's just go ahead and call Jack and Steve and we'll just get together with them and meet them. The minute we walked in the door, Jack and Steve were waiting in the front lobby. And the minute we walked in, it was like, we knew it, not even music, not even anything, just the greeting, the people, the fellowship. It was like, oh yeah, this
Feels
is
good.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've been here 4 years and it just was the right thing to do. Being part of a family, a church family.
Wow.
We missed that, you know. We had a wonderful relationship down south for over 30 years down there. As a Christian, you need that. I needed that, you know. And we came here and it was just a perfect fit all the way around, you know, the music, the people, everything that went into it. And we just seemed to fit in.
Yeah.
You know, Noble was able to be here for a couple of years working in ministry here. And I slowly got involved in different things. Slowly, because that's my nature. But we couldn't ask for anything better.
Awesome.
So we decided to stay instead of traveling. We're actually closing. We're building a house.
Oh, great.
We're closing July 31st.
Oh, congratulations.
We're closing,
cool.
and we're here.
Awesome. We're glad to have you here for sure. So do you have any advice for someone who might be like church hopping?
Church hopping. I think as far as church hopping goes, it's probably best to, I don't want to say pray first, but I mean, that certainly is going to help. Don't go where your friends are because your friends are there, or because you know somebody.
Sure.
Because it might not be the right fit for you.
Yeah.
It might not be where God wants you to be.
Yeah.
So check out places and don't go to the popular or the biggest or the best. You know, there's some amazing small churches that we have up here. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come here to Sunlight, of course.
Sure.
You know, but if you're looking, a lot of people have, you know, younger children, and that's a major aspect.
Right.
We have here an amazing team. Sarah and her group, they put on an amazing ministry.
Well, you're part of, you know, a lot of the ministries here too, so we want to definitely recognize you.
Some.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the longest part, if you guys are listening, she's been modest here, but she's been involved in like women's ministries and the reading or the reception and all that stuff. So I mean, that's all prayer and stuff like that.
Yes.
So for sure.
I do enjoy that.
Well, Miss Melissa, is there anything else that we might have not covered, or can I just ask one last question?
You can ask one last question.
Okay. Well, before I do, I want to thank you for being on this podcast, and thanks for everyone who joined in with us live. Pam, Shamra, Julie, Dan. I mean, just so many of you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Be sure to, if you guys are familiar or like this podcast or think it might help someone else out, please share. I'm sure Melissa wouldn't, object to sharing this podcast, and so that we could grow as a family here. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening and making it this far. Miss Melissa, I want to ask you one last question. After looking over your life, I mean, and we've spanned how many years? Like tons of years, right? Like a whole bunch. And over what, births and your son, Stephen, and, growing up. Why do you think God is awesome?
I believe that God has our best interest at heart. And he cares so much for each one of us that he will let us go so far. And then he'll say, okay, now it's my turn. And being that he is the God of gods and the King of kings, he's not going to let anyone who has a true heart for him go astray. Right. He's going to bring you back, pull you in, keep you there somehow, some way. Awesome. In his time.
His time.
In his time.
Right.
It's not always our time.
No.
It's not always our time.
No, absolutely not. Well, thank you so much for Miss Melissa for joining us. Thank you guys. And we will see you guys next time.